Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, my name is Muhammad Gifari. We see again in chapter 12 in why we need to compare and literature. So, right, first one. In an essay written for the most recent an American Comparative Literature Association, ACLA, 10-year reports on the discipline, and I address the nature of these associations, recurring series of reports as embodying logical of indiscipline that afflicts not only this field of the study but also more generally the humanities or fairies. So I fully intended not to return to subject since it seemed to me then there is not logic that become intense that comparative literature was no longer compellable of deciding the questions based by its critical practice. So why we compare the comparative literature? So the contemporary situation of the humanities now resemble more and more the history that comparative literature has always known. The sense of crisis that Rand E. Wallach inserts into the history comparative literature has now migrated across the humanities as the latter increasingly faced with the question well known to this field. What is its object of study, that is, what guides the contemporary significance of the humanities when the past can no longer assure such significance. The question is even more pressing at moment when a pervasive sense of the discipline of the humanities only seems comparable confronting moods of crisis and anxiety, laden self reflection, the need of response to this question hangs over consequences such as of organized by the Cambridge University's Centers for Research in the Arts. So, reflections of the humanities have affirmed that they, like comparative literature, are faced with a problem, but they have not posed the question wherever this self-reflexive examination are themselves part of the crisis. They proclaim to the extent that the sustain of the humanities at the limit of their significance. And precisely in order to sustain this limit so that reflections remain replatable, not have they critically explored the link between an economic and intellectual crisis, as the current economic crisis becoming confused with what was already a problem for humanities, namely the questions of their significance, the questions of what they can be compared to the economic terms of current crisis options, the extent to which the humanities have sustained themselves. Here, the humanities has taken its lead from comparative literature by making us entirely about how to define their significance, become the subject of a limitless reflection and effects, transforming a person's self about the intercultural project, but forgetting, as Kierkegaard pointed out, to question the instrumental purpose of that doubt, namely to develop the content of a concept when a content was evident, no content was evident or could be positively agreed upon. So the crisis limit that includes hyper-reflection as well as the sense of crisis and immunities is that comparative literature has recognized as fundamental to what it does even when it has tried to discipline this recognition. And Awalek already put his finger on this fundamental problem in 1963 when he wrote that comparative literature has not been able to establish a distinct subject matter and and a specific methodology. While it goes to unobserved that comparative literature has been saddled With an obvious methodology, the obsolete methodology refers to it at best a naive kind of comparisons. Myths and legends, ideas which nations have each other. An approach that Wallach brands as positively factualism. Does not inquire seriously into the nature of the object as a study. For Wallach, the part of this absolute practice is comparison lies in avoiding an artificial distinction between comparative and general literature. So, thank you so much. That's all about my presentations. And week 12, we'll meet in week 13. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.